Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to read the next section. I think this is part 12 of Napoleon and Josephine, whoever is following along and reading with me. So we are on the honeymoon chapter, what is this? 4? Chapter 4. So, I awaken full of you, sweet and incomparable Josephina. What is this bizarre effect that you have upon my heart? The letter from Napoleon to Josephina, late winter or spring, early spring of 1796. Do I love him? Well, no. Letter from Josephina to a friend. Early spring of 1796. So, yeah, okay. 1. General Bonaparte lost no time in calling the Rue Chateauneuf, in availing himself to the invitation extended by the widow Bonaparte to her Thursdays, her evenings at home. At these receptions he met, among her many friends and admirers, prominent figures of the new regime and the old, celebrities of the world of the theatre and the arts, Messieurs the Marquis de Contelencourt, de Sigler, de Mossiker, the Abbé Sciences, the actor Talma, academic playwright Arnaud, artist Isabelle, and Pruhan, director Barris. He was immediately enchanted by this lady, who dedicated her life to the cultivation of her enchantments. But he was obviously not immediately enslaved, not yet, in the catchphrase current at the time, enchanted to her chariot wheels. Otherwise, she would not have written him one of her charming little letters, dating it merely this evening of the 6th, presumably the 6th, Bromere, October 28th. You no longer come to see a friend who loves you. You have forsaken her, which is a great mistake, for she is tenderly devoted to you. Come tomorrow to lunch with me. I must see you and talk with you on matters important in your interests. Good night, my friend. A fond embrace. Signed, Vinine Bonapartenus. It brought a prompt, ready reply from the general, dated 6 Bromere, apparently that very night. I cannot imagine the reason for the tone of your letter. I beg you to believe me when I say that no one so yearns for your friendship as do I, that no one can be more eager than I for the occasion to prove it, not prone, what the heck, prove. Had my duties permitted, I would have come in person to deliver this message. Bonaparte. Had he been ill at ease, in the need of reassurance that he was welcome in the distinguished company that gathered in her saloon, the most distinguished society of any house in Paris, he said, of it too, General Gourgard. Unquestionably, he would have needed assurance that his attentions to her as a suitor were not to be rebuffed. He required some such assurance even from the prostitutes in the Palaces Royal arcades before he would accost them. His youthful journals reveal How much more, then, from this first great lady he encountered, this elegance, this sophisticate, this glamorous creature out of the world he had known only from a distance. The brusqueness and arrogance that later distinguished his attitude towards his female conquests were camouflaged for his basic timidity with women. With women, the conquest were camouflaged for his basic timidity with women. The contempt he professioned for women in all roles save the sexual was another expression of it. The widowed Bonaparteness motive in beckoning him on is transparent. It required not even her political flair to see him as the new strong man of the capital, and in the internal shifting sands of the French political scene, one well worth cultivating as a friend or a friendly protector, or as a suitor, if that was not if that was how it should develop. A woman's inventory of admirers could not be too long. Reassured as to her favor, General Bonaparte became her constant escort at the opera, at the theater, at bars, receptions at the Luxembourg, at the Talus Soleil, in the elaborate thatched roofed cottage on the Seine. He entertained Madame Bonaparte at dinner in his suspicious new headquarters on the Rue de Capricorns, drove her about the capital and the countryside in his fine new carriage. They exchanged portraits, and sometime in that winter the apprentice did indeed ripen into intimacy. Some night in December of 1795, or in January or February of 1796, after a tea dinner in the wood-panelled oval dining room, or after a reception after the last carriage had rolled out of the courtyard and down the long tree-lined driveway to the Rue Châteauneuf, after chef, maid, and butler had retired to their attic. Then the hostess and her solitary guest went together up the narrow staircase to the oval bedroom above, and with the light from the fireplace flickering across the arcs of mirror, that night they became lovers. Ooh. No definite date can be established for that true lovers' tryst. General Bonaparte inconsiderately neglected to include the date on the letter. He rushed off to the Rue Chandelin early in the morning after making it only 7 in the morning. In his urgent need to communicate with his beloved, even before the appointed hour of the next meeting at 11. I wake full of you, between your portrait and the memory of our intoxicating night. My senses have had no respite. Sweet and incomparable Josephine, what is this bizarre effect you have upon my heart? What if you were to be angry? What if I were to see you sad and troubled? Then my soul would be shattered by distress. Then your lover could find no peace, no rest. But I find none either, when I am succumbed to the profound emotion that overwhelms me. When I draw up from your lips, from your heart, a flame that consumes me. It was last night that I realized that your boyfriend is not you and that he will be leaving the city at noon. But I shall see you in 3 hours. Until then, more dose amor. I send you 1,000 kisses, but send me none in return, for they are my blood on fire. BP. And here is the actual note on this page. It's really cool. Yeah. And it says, the memory of a intoxicating night. Napoleon's letter to Josephine after their first lovers' meeting is dated simply 7 in the morning, translated on page 90, which we just read. On the same dateless night on which they had become lovers, Marie Josephine Rosa became Josephine. The portrait to which General Bonaparte referred was one probably painted by our good friend Isabelle, one of the well-known fragile profiles, wispy, ethereal, in the line of his letter which ends in that. These two words are striking out. Napoleon's words are sometimes as difficult to interpret as to decipher. That and that, for example, and that. She was not so remote a creature as her image, and that. He had been surprised to find in his arms so sensuous, so passionate, so passionately abandoned a woman, instead of fragile, ethereal, gracious, condescending lady of the portrait. If he was so surprised, he was naive. He was not aware of her seriously comprised reputation. Bars says he was. Bonaparte was as well acquainted with all of the lady's adventures as we were. I know he knew, because he heard the stories in my presence. Her affair with Hoche was known to all Paris, says Bars, and Madame Bonaparteness was generally recognized as one of my early liaisons, with Bonaparte a frequent visitor to my apartment. He could not have remained ignorant of such a state of affairs, nor could he have believed that everything was over between her and me. But where a normal man would have been profoundly disturbed, this one was indifferent. He could rise above such considerations. Barr's implication is that Bonaparte was so unprincipled, his ambition was so overweening, that he encouraged his paramount to use her influencer with her former lover to forward the career of her new one. Yet on another page of his memoirs, Barr writes that Bonaparte, our artful conveyor that he was, looked upon that conniving woman as an angel of truth and candor, and flew into such a rage against me as to challenge me to a duel for having attempted an assault on the virtue of his Mortia. But then, Barr's memoirs, written in exile in the first 2 decades of the 19th century, in consuming anger against the ingrate protégé, whom he blamed for his own political eclipse and banishment, are a mass of contradictions. All the days of his years were not long enough for a deposed and vindictive Bars to point out his venom against the Bonaparte pair, male and female. His defamations of Josephina were only primarily responsible for the cloud that fell over her reputation for all time. It is the virulent hatred which invalidates his testimony, along with the blatant inaccuracies and contradictions. On one page, he calls her a Creole wanton, taking on lovers promiscuously, such as an aide-de-camp of Huchet's on a mission to her from the general, or Huchet's giant Alison groom, and rising superior even to racial prejudices, having intercourse with Negroes. The last may have had its origin in the report that a man of color, a mulatto, lived with and eventually married another Madame Bonhartness, the Countess Francisco Marie, Josephina's sister-in-law. On the next page, he makes her out a cold and violent schemer. Her heart never played a part in her carnal adventures. Her love affairs were the result of sordid calculation. The men who possessed her may have flattered themselves on her apparently passionate abandon with them, but the ludicrous Creole had never for a moment lost sight of her mercenary motives. She was one of those women who would have drunk gold out of a lover's skull. Ooh, interesting. By Barr's account, she is both the wanton and the venal Creole, and Napoleon is both dupe and pimp. Barr's word as a biographer is as unacceptable as was his word as a man. But we had Napoleon's own irrefutable testimony to prove that he was in possession of the facts concerning Josephina's indiscretions. Everything about you pleased me, even to the memory of the errors of your ways. Virtue for me consisted of what you made it. He could have meant nothing else in this letter of June 8th to Josephina from Milan. What is truly baffling is the relationship which existed between Barras and the men who loved the woman, who were ostensibly, I don't know that word, his mistresses. Tallien never resigned himself to his Teresa's infidelities, but cringed and fumed at all of her lovers, with the sole exception of Barras, to whom he specifically entrusted her when he set out with Bonaparte for Egypt in 1789 or 1798. As to General Hoche's and Bonaparte, their hackles rose at the sight of each other. Out of jealousy over window Bonaparteness, yet neither manifest a trace of jealousy toward Barras. Napoleon made Barras the confidant of his courtship of the lady and a witness of the wedding. It is not good enough to say that all three of these men flattered the director to further their careers. This might have applied to Talon, but not an independent and incorruptible Boucher, not to a fiercely proud and fiery courtesan Bonaparte. The key to Napoleon's attitude towards bars, to his interpretation of the situation, is to be found in this pronouncement dictation to his chronicler La Caisse. Ferris was a man of the uttermost immortality, shameless and debauched. I had no difficulty in believing that he was, as he was generally reported to be, a homosexual. In that frame of mind, Napoleon would have discredited the rumors linking his wife's name with bars. She could not so easily prevent a clash between Bonaparte and Hoche on the report of his former lady friend going on in Paris. Hoche became vindictive. I am desperate at receiving no reply from the woman I love, the widow whose son I have come to regard as my own. He wrote to a friend and confident in a letter sealed in the design of a bleeding heart. Would that be like, that's interesting. I wonder if it's like an actual bleeding heart. Not like actual, but like cut out of a bleeding heart. Interesting. Vanity has replaced affection in the heart of my former friend. Unfortunately, I cannot get leave to go to Paris to see the woman who is the cause of all my distress. But Hoche had wanted the best of two worlds, marital bliss and extramarital romance. He seemed unable to make his mind to give up his pregnant wife for the sake of his glamorous widow, or vice versa. It may have been a sign of her impatience, or as some oblique feminine maneuver to bring him to a decision that Madame Bonhartness, in the spring of 1795, recalled Eugene from Hoche's staff. When Hoche finally got leave that December to go to Paris, it was not against the bars, but against Bonaparte, that his resentment was directed. That upstart, insubordinate officer, who had earlier refused transfer to his command, who had so recently flashed to a promiscuous as General Vendemier, and who was now the bulwark of the Directory. Hoche met Bonaparte with Madame Bonhartness on his arm at a party at the Talent. As a fellow guest, the banker Gabriel Julien Ovrard tells in his memoirs. Bonaparte that evening played the role of the fortune teller, taking Madame Tallion's hand and predicting 1,000 improbabilities. It would have been no improbability had he predicted that Ovrard would shortly become Madame Tallion's lover and the father of 4 of her illegitimate children. The other guests rushed gaily up for a palm reading, but when it was the turn of General Hoche, there came a sudden change in mood. Bonaparte pretended to study the lines in the hand extended to him, and then in a solemn tone of voice, one with a sharp note of malice in it, he demanded, "Why, General, you will die in your bed." A quick flush of anger mounted to Hoche's face, but Madame Bonhartness stepped in. With one of her sweet smiles and tactful faces, and the storm has averted. I wrote to demand the the return of the letters. I have written to Madame for your hardness. Whereas, quotes Huchet as saying, I did not relish the thought of her future husband familiarizing himself with my enamorous style. Apparently, however, no exchange of old love letters was effected between them, for the time would shortly come when not only would Bonaparte's prediction come true, but Josephine would resort to desperate measures to retrieve the packet of her own billet doux addressed to Rocher. Oh, interesting. I think that's interesting. So that is, I think, part 4 on the honeymoon, chapter 1. It was really interesting. I enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that. Below, if you like this video, remember to get a thumbs up, click that subscribe button, and ring the bell for notifications. Down below are my social media links, my links to Goodreads, Instagram, my website, and my Amazon wishlist. And see you in the next video. Bye!